First episode begins as Mark's innie shouts out, "She's alive." He wakes up in his usual spot, the Lumon elevator, with its doors opening to the severed floor. He runs out in a panic, determined to find his MDR colleagues after the OTC ordeal. He sprints from corridor to corridor, a never-ending labyrinth of liminal spaces. He eventually finds the wellness center, but it's completely different. The wood paneling is gone, and the room is empty and painted in the same shade of white as everywhere else. As he stands alone, we see a mysterious figure looking at him in the background. He makes his way to his MDR desk, but Helly, Irving, and Dylan aren't there. Instead, he meets Mark W., Gwendolyn Y., and Dario R. Mr. Milchick makes an appearance, welcoming Mark back to the office. "Been a minute," he says. "What you all did 5 months ago was one of the most painful moments in the history of this company. I, too, was wounded by it. But we must be cut to heal, mustn't we?" He explains as they walk to the management office together. Mark also meets Miss Huang, the severed floor's new deputy manager, who also happens to be a child. It's revealed that Ms. Coble no longer works for Lumon, and Milchick is now in charge of the floor. He tells Mark that his old colleagues weren't fired. Helly R. and Irving B. both successfully made contact with persons on the outside, just as you did. Dylan G's Outie learned what happened after the fact, he explains. "The four of you have achieved international fame," Milchick adds, handing Mark a heavily redacted copy of the Kier Gazette with a photo of them all on a parade. "As a group, you've become known as the face of severance reform." So, what happened to Harmony Coble? Milchick brands her a sadist who attempted to engage Mark's innie and Outie in some sort of throuple. Mark demands to know where his team is. According to Milchick, despite the reforms, everyone refused to come back, apart from Mark, whose Outie begged Lumon to let him return. "Well, I'd like to hear it from them," Mark says, but Milchick says that's not possible. Mark returns to his desk, he even leaves his balloons behind, and listens to Mark W. natter on about the differences between this office and his old place. Gwendolyn asks him about the outside world. She's baffled when he says he was too distracted by his brother-in-law to look at the sky. "Could you tell what state you were in? Because 3 of us put Wyoming on our input survey," she asks, as well as, "How's wind? Is it just like getting breathed on, kinda?" Miss Huang walks in with a red ball to play the ball game. Mark W. asks her why she's a child. "Because of when I was born," she answers, before rolling the ball to him. Mark W. explains that he came from MDR department of 5X with Gwendolyn and that he thought he was permanently retired after his branch shut down. He rolls the ball to Mark, and as the photo of his Outie and Gemma flickers in his head, he soldiers through a smile and says, "I'm lucky enough to have made 4 new friends today." "I have to remind you that I'm a supervisor, not a friend," Miss Huang says, and Mark obliges by correcting himself. The next day, as his fellow refiners compare their perpetuity wings, Mark pens a sneaky note and slips it into Mark W.'s pocket. In a brief sweet moment, Mark W. says he's sorry that Mark lost his friends. When Mark returns to the office, Milchick confronts him with the note. "Dear Outie, I don't know if this will reach you, but I'm writing to alert you of the heinous conditions in the severed office to which you have transferred me," it reads. The branch is run by a shambolic rube who goes by Milkshake, a man whose stupidity is rivaled only by that of the 9 core principles. "If you must continue to send me here, please consider strapping a bomb to me so that I may explode Milkshake and the very spirit of Kier Egan. Wrathfully, your innie, Mark W." Milchick asks if it's earnest. "Do you really think I'm a shambolic rube?" Mark tells Milchick he doesn't have anything against his new team, but he wants his old team back. For his insolence, Milchick revokes his status as department chief. After tricking them into thinking he messed with the kitchenette, Mark makes a run for it. He makes it to the management office and finds the speaker for the board. "I know you want to do the right thing for severed people, which is why I need to see my team again," he pleads. "If we truly are the face of severance reform as you say, then they deserve a chance. Please, they're my friends, you can't just make them disappear." However, Milchick doesn't punish Mark as you'd expect. "It is clear your Outie's fame has gone to your innie's head," he says, before sending Mark back to the surface. As Mark steps back out of the elevator, the floor looks a bit different. For starters, there's an O&D painting on the wall with a not-so-cryptic message: Kier pardons his betrayers. Soon, everyone arrives. Dylan, Irving, who seems particularly troubled after his experience on the outside, and Helly. Mark tells them that they're all famous and how he sabotaged the new people. Dylan wants to know what happened to everyone, but Mark rightly points out that they could be listening right now. Moments later, the rest of the team meets Miss Huang, who takes them all to the new break room. It's no longer a torturous place, but a room for the refiners to relax. Milchik welcomes them all back. "I guess the board reconsidered my terms," Mark says, and Milchik, with a hint of contempt, replies, "Guess so." They're all shown a new company video, titled Lumon is Listening. It shows the Lumon Administrative Building, who sounds a lot like Keanu Reeves, who talks about its evolution and the company's workers. We also find out that Lumon operates in 206 countries. It then explains the Macrodat uprising. Under my literal nose unfolded a human drama of danger and intrigue, righteous anger, inspiration, and love. The Macrodat uprising yielded bounteous reforms. These include tasty new snacks like fruit leather, cut beans, Christmas mints, and salsa. Not sold yet? The incentives were also reformed and now range from hall passes to pineapple bobbing to our brand new playful mirror room. Milchik insists he doesn't want to be their jailer. By end of day, each of you will choose whether you want to remain here. Not your outies, but you. He also explains that the break room has no cameras or microphone. It is a place for total privacy and comfort. "I truly hope you will choose to stay and enjoy what you've helped build," he adds. After Milchik and Miss Huang leave, Mark tells them about what happened on the outside and how his Outie is married to Ms. Casey, who seemingly died. However, Helly doesn't tell the truth. She says she saw the inside of a really fucking boring apartment and a night gardener who said he'd get help from the cops, but nothing came of it. Irving struggles to reveal what happened. "It's not our world up there. That's what I saw," he says before walking out. Dylan chases after him, and Helly asks if Mark and Miss Casey looked happy in their wedding photo. Mark also insists he didn't have any feelings for Miss Casey. Mark wants to get Miss Casey out. "Strictly speaking, she's not your wife. Pretty sure your Outie bought the ring," Helly says, but Mark says it's mushy. Helly laughs before arguing that they don't owe their Outies anything. "But Ms. Casey is one of us, so if you want to help your Outie and find out what happened to her, I'll help," she pledges. Dylan catches up to Irving, who reveals that Bert's Outie appears to be married to someone else. "The last time I was happy was when all I knew was MDR, when I was good at my job and not trying to be happy," he says. Dylan refuses to let him leave, and Irving quietly tells him about his Outie's paintings of dark hallways with an elevator and a downward arrow, where we last saw Miss Casey. "I'm sorry that Outie Bert has a hot husband or whatever, but he is not the point. Innie Bert is the guy you fell for, and I know because I encouraged the courtship," Dylan says. "I want it to be over. I want the pain to be over. If he's gone and I'm gone, then somehow we'll be together," Irving tells him. As Dylan begs him to stay and figure out what the fuck this is, Miss Huang interrupts and asks him to come see Milchik. As Milchik obsesses over his computer's welcome screen, it still says Miss Kobold on it, Dylan storms in. Milchik isn't mad. In fact, he's quite the opposite. "Your wife's name is Gretchen," he says, before taking him to a secret room to show him a confidential plan for an Outie family visitation suite. "Are you saying I could see my family here?" Dylan asks. "If you take the name of the room at face value, I'd say yes," Milchik replies. There's just one slight catch. Milchik doesn't want to tell the rest of the MDR team about it because they're all single, and he doesn't want them to be resentful of Dylan. Dylan, Irving, Helly, and Mark return to their desk and start refining. As Mark selects some numbers, we get a glimpse of another screen with Miss Casey, aka Gemma, and it has a mysterious title, Cold Harbor.